what should a 15-year-old Ethiopian be practicing right now?
If you have to, if you just need to learn one thing, just learn problem solving and just learn how to be a good, just have a good algorithmic mind. Learn empathy. Learn the fundamentals of computer science, like learn what cybersecurity is, how does it work, learn how you scale things, how microservices work.
I'm here with Beruh Yayehyirad Kitaw. Beruh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Elvis. Nice to be here.
You are with MMCY in Addis.
That's right.
Who is MMCY?
Hmm. So I would describe us as a global talent company. So we provide highly skilled, highly qualified, and cost-effective resources, whether in technology, which is the group that I lead, software engineers, IT support people, and all of those tech-related jobs. But we also do more broader skill sets as well, such as virtual assistants, customer support agents, call center agents, and anything you can think of, basically.
So you're the director of technology, right?
Yeah.
And that means you do the tech side of MMCY. So MMCY altogether has how many people?
We're north of 500 at this time.
Okay. Okay. So that's a
Yeah,
good number.
it is a good number. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but the tech group that I lead is closer to around 200 people. So that would be a mix of, yeah, software engineers, uh, developers, QA engineers, cloud solutions architects, um, platform support engineers, and also like more the high level, AI and machine learning engineers that we've recently been investing in. Um, a lot of those are client-facing resources, meaning that they work with our clients in the US, in Europe, and basically any other part of the world. And some of them are part of the R&D team, which is like the team that creates tech for us, for MMCY, tech that we use to kind of streamline our operations, become more effective, more productive, and just help us grow and scale.
All right. So interesting. So you guys are neither an ITO nor a BPO, you're a hybrid, right? So I guess if we have that old categorization between ITO and BPO, I don't know many companies that don't either fall 80/20 into one of the two camps, ITO or BPO. You guys are straight down the middle in terms of FTE, right?
Yes, in terms of FTE, in terms of numbers, if you look at size of the workforce, we're right about 50-50. Uh, in terms of revenue and value, we're still slightly leaning around towards the IT side of things, toward the tech side of things. But the BPO side is the fastest growing and the more will be the biggest in a few years, in a few months. But we started out as a purely technology company, and BPO was more of a recent venture the last couple of years.
Interesting. So, I mean, to my understanding, it seems like most BPOs are scrambling right now to call themselves ITOs, not ITOs, but AI companies, right? So you guys are, and we'll get into that, the interesting stuff you're doing with AI. But you see the BPO, which I would assume is more human heavy, unless you're talking
Mhm.
about AI agents, human agents. You would see that side as growing despite the recent advancements in AI. You would still think you're growing the BPO side.
Yeah, for us, that's definitely been the case. So as I said, we started out as a tech company. Uh, we just had developers and all of those roles related to software engineering. Um, but growing the BPO activity, I think, was easier in this market than it was to grow the ITO business. So when you're hiring high-end software engineers, You're looking at hiring maybe the top 10% of graduates. You're looking at very specific and specialized skills with lots of experience, lots of diverse skill sets. Growing a BPO is simpler because you're looking at just hiring entry level resources, good command of the English language, some basic empathy and problem solving skills, and so you have a bigger talent pool to tap into when you're trying to grow that business, as opposed to the ITO and the software engineering side of things, where maybe the talent pool is much narrower, and you really need to have very strong vetting and selection processes to make sure you get the right people and fit them with the right clients. So for us, yeah, the BPO side of things has been growing much faster in the last few years, but we're still heavy on the software engineering and tech side of things, especially in terms of revenue and value. So yeah, that's been the case for us.
So you guys have been around a long time.
Yeah.
When did MMCY get founded?
So it was founded here in Ethiopia in January of 2008. So like 17 years ago,
Wow.
17 and a half years ago. We were a small company, I mean, a relatively small company until, the pre-pandemic years. I don't think we ever exceeded like 50 or 60 employees at any point of time. Uh, Post-pandemic was, during the pandemic, that number maybe shrunk a bit the first few months, and then when it's picked up, it was like, yeah, we it was an unstoppable growth trajectory since then. And I think at our peak, we had 700 or 800 employees. Now we've stabilized around, 500, 550 employees currently.
Okay, so and that has much to do with your pivot to BPO, but you also have now 200 people, which is four times more than 50 in the IT services. So you've grown on all fronts.
We've grown on all fronts, yeah. But I think if we hadn't ventured into the BPO sector, we would never have reached this 600 employee number with just ITO. Uh, the fact that we ventured into BPO kind of stretched us out of our comfort zone, made us look into different organizational structures to kind of accommodate this growth and expansion and the scaling. And we've been able to use that capabilities into growing our software and tech business as well. Yeah.
So did you find, I don't know how much you can speak to this, but did you find that on the client side, it was easy to combine the two, or are they totally different clients? So if you get a client first asking you to do some BPO work for you, that you then can also upsell them on some IT work, or the other way around, or are they different types of clients?
It's a mix of both. So you have a few clients where it's like I just need customer support services, and they don't do any tech at all. They're not interested, and it's just completely separate culture and business and industry. Um, we've had clients who started on the BPO side of things, and then once they heard of our capabilities, they either purchased our services in the IT as well, or they referred us to a partner or an affiliate company, one of the people that they know to kind of use our services as well. That's very common. That's fairly common for people to use our BPO services, then refer us as refer our IT services to other companies or to themselves as well, or other departments within the same company.
Right, right. And last time we spoke, you told me, I want to get straight into it. You told me you guys are building all kinds of agents. You've even been building them before people were calling them agents. And then later you thought, oh yeah, by the way, I guess that's what we're doing already. We're building agents here. That is so fascinating to me. That's really the reason I do this podcast and the reason that I want to be like following people like you to understand what's happening at the front lines, who's building what in companies that are at the front line of either we're expanding with this stuff, or we're probably going to get run over by others. So I really want
Right.
to like kind of dig into that to what extent you feel comfortable, like just telling me a bit about like what you guys have been doing with agents.
Yeah. So we weren't calling them agents, as you said. Like a couple of years ago, we set up this R&D department. It was essentially for us. It was a way for us to train new and promising software engineers. We have this boot camp program where we select some of the best talent in the graduation pool. We take them on. They get trained for a couple of months, and then we wanted them to spend some time in doing building stuff for us. Uh, and at the end, we would maybe once they've acquired the right amount of experience, they have the right portfolio of products under their belt, we can maybe pitch them to our clients and maybe try and place them to our clients. So that was the main idea initially. Um, but then when we had that whole GPT-3 and the whole movement around that, we kind of decided maybe it's time for us to look into this thing and to invest into understanding what this can do for us. How can it solve our pain points? How can it help us grow as a company and scale, which is the biggest issue that most BPO companies or IT companies in our part of the world face. It's easy to deliver on a few clients and a few accounts, but can you scale? Like, can you scale from 20 developers to 200 and from 200 to 2,000? How can you do that? If you want to do that, you can't do that in the traditional way of doing business, right? You need to look at your processes, your workflow. You look to improving your workflows, creating automations, um, and using AI. And we said, well, how can we use AI to kind of streamline some of our pain points, the things that are not allowing us to grow and to scale? So we set up this R&D team, and it's like a small team. It's like two or three developers, and mostly uh, junior ones at that. And we just gave them the right tools, the right time support, and we just put up a whiteboard, a list of projects that people can look into, and just to tell us, is this possible? Is this not possible? Is this why science fiction, or is this something that's doable? And how well can we do it? How fast can we do it? What are the resources that we need? Initially, that was just the thing. Like, it's just the discovery process. We just wanted to know what it can do. So out of the 10 projects that we wrote on that whiteboard, I think, four or five of them got picked up by the team. And the execution was just, mind blowing to a lot of us. It was like, I could not believe what results we were seeing. And so some of the projects were, the biggest project, the first one that we rolled out was a resume analysis agent. I call it an agent now. We didn't know it was an agent then. It was just a microservice living in the cloud that we had just built and using OpenAI and things like that. So, the biggest pain point we have when you're scaling at the rate that we are scaling at, we were hiring at one point, I don't know, like 30 to 50 people a week. And so when you're doing that, maybe 50 people a month, I would say, not a week. But even 50 people a month, you're interviewing 400 people at least for those 50 people to get those 50 people. And you're getting 400, 500 resumes every month. And so initially we were asking people to go into our website and fill out these very complicated forms, fill in their experience, fill in their education levels, what type of skills do they have. It would take them an hour and a half, and just nobody was doing it. Only the desperate candidates were doing it. The best ones are not, you know, taking their time to go through that process, and we just wanted uh, to get the best candidates in our database into our applicant tracking system.
Let me
So
just for context, maybe for people who aren't from Ethiopia.
yeah,
So 135 million people, roughly, who knows, right? About. And
Yeah.
I mean, the median age, average age is under 20 for sure, right? So it's 19, 18 or something like that.
18, yeah, yeah.
18,
I think
right?
the large part of the population is between 18 and 25. It's like 60 something percent of the population is 18 to 25 years old.
So that's the people
So
whose resumes land on your desk.
that's,
And
and yeah,
you're
and
an
it's like,
employer in the formal economy, right? So that
mhm,
means formal economy. I don't know Ethiopian statistics, but East African statistics are you're around 10 to 15%. And if you don't want to work for the government, you're down to the single digits in terms of where you could work to get all the perks and benefits as in a formal employmentship. So you have, I'm just sitting here in Germany where every store out here has a sign on the door, help needed, help wanted. It's
mm,
just
mm,
the,
mm.
the flip side of that coin is what's happening in Ethiopia. Just for context of, you saying you have too many resumes on your desk. And a lot of German businesses would, yeah, would be happy to get more resumes.
Get that problem. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, young population, 100,000 plus graduates every year. 70% roughly are, trainable to work in the tech businesses. So it's like the STEM graduates are about 70% of the graduates. So imagine you have 70,000 people entering the workforce every year. And so the number of applicants you get for a job are extremely high. Even
Yeah,
even even the more senior ones, the more demanding ones, just have uh, hundreds of resumes and applicants coming through for every job posting that we put out. Um, but again,
yeah.
most of them are not, appropriate for that job. And we know that just looking at their resumes and just looking at the things that they send over, you can eliminate probably 75% of the resumes that come in for a job just based on the resume and just evaluating them, looking at the experience level and the skills of that person. Um, but that was the challenge that we had. Like people were sending over resumes, and our recruiters were just getting overwhelmed with those applications coming through. And so we had people sitting around looking at a resume, putting it, right, entering it into our applicant tracking system, the applicant tracking system that we built in-house, FYI. And so we just had people doing that manually, spending an hour and a half, making a lot of mistakes on each resume. So that was just a pain point, and we just knew that that wasn't sustainable at all. And so,
So
you
you initially had a junior person do that pre filtering and then a senior
yeah,
person who actually would make the choice. It wouldn't be the first person looking at the resume and saying, "Okay, if you send me this in this layout, I'm not even going to look at what it's saying on there. I'm not going to look at it's you it was that you substituted for the initial junior person an AI versus uh I'm not getting this question out right, but you know what I mean, right? So
yeah,
initially you had someone who just kind of looked at the basics and just filtered by are all the categories filled? Is this actually a person who is remotely um ready to be working in this job?
yeah. So I think 95% of the resumes we receive, we would put them into the applicant tracking system, and it will be in our database, unless it's a corrupted resume or it's completely irrelevant or something like that, or really a bad resume that we just cannot process. Most of it we'll put into our database, and we would use them either for this position or maybe for something from something else that's upcoming, or just a general way of analyzing the level of candidates that we receive, what type of talent is available, things like that. So every resume we receive, we would put in our database, and we would use it for either to fill a role or just for analytics and data purposes, right? Um, so in this case, yeah, the junior persons, the junior recruiters would come in, submit, put down the resumes, put all the information that they get on the resume into the applicant tracking system, put them in a database, and then they would then make a decision on whether to, you know, get the candidate to the next level. Maybe it's the interview process, the vetting process, or just decline and put them in a frozen state and just leave them in the database for now. for maybe for further analysis and for future opportunities. Um, so we wanted to streamline that process, and we had looked at, off-the-shelf and commercial solutions to do that for us, cloud-based solutions. I had evaluated a few of them. Some of them were like $400 a month or things like that. So it's like, okay, the ROI is not obvious, but it is something that we need to invest on. And so one of the things that the R&D guys looked at was, let's build a resume parser. Let's try it. So um, so immediately, I think the initial reaction was like a jaw-dropping accuracy. It's like, wow, you really did this. Like, it really works. Like, I tried it on a few resumes that we already knew and people that we were familiar with, and like, this is like 95% accurate. Like, okay, maybe this 1 year of, the year of graduation maybe got mixed up, but let's try and improve the prompt. Let's do this. Let's iterate. Let's work on this. Like, this is really promising. This can go somewhere. I mean, we can probably use this, right? And then just kept working at it, kept iterating, making it better, working on the prompts, working on uh, the cross-checking between models, because we do that as well. So you have one AI model that does the actual parsing and summarization. Then you have another one that's maybe evaluating it and improving it again. And once we got all those pieces together, it was like, let's use it, let's roll it out. Let's roll it out and let's see how it works in the wild. And probably start seeing issues there. And yeah, you do see issues when you are in the wild because people send just some really, wild resumes. It's like, oh, I'm gonna take a photo of my resume or my screen on using my phone and send that to you guys. And I'm like, okay, can we try to adapt to that situation as well? Can we support other formats? Oh, this person sent us a zip file. Can we unzip it and look at what's inside? Um, and now, so we haven't done an accurate, like scientific level type of study on the accuracy of our parsing tool, but um, intuition, it's 95% accurate at this point. It's more accurate than a human who would be doing this day in, day out, you know, less motivated, tired, and by the end of their day, they're just like copying, pasting anything that they can just to get through, just to get the numbers. Um, so we felt that we built something that's more accurate than a human. So okay, now we freed up those junior recruiters to do more stuff, more advanced stuff. Like, so now their job is to just review the AI's output uh, very quickly, see if there's anything crazy that made through the parsing process. Maybe the AI has hallucinated, or maybe the AI misunderstood a portion of the resume because maybe the AI doesn't have some contextual information, like doesn't know the names of universities in Ethiopia. So maybe it mistook a university for a place of work. Things like that. That the cultural nuances that maybe the AI gets wrong, but their job is now to just quickly review. Takes them a minute. Then nothing wrong, nothing, no huge mistake. Uh, Mark it as reviewed and move on to the next one. So
Right.
yeah.
So here's my big question. So how do you then go forward with it? Or let me start differently. We talked about this offline before. I find it fascinating that you're experimenting with this, right? So just to reiterate, we did a study in Rwanda checking what the lowest paid contact center work pay would be compared to the rest of the population. And it
Mhm.
came out that the bottom line of contact center work was at 4% of the top 4 percentiles in the country population, and the top 20 percentile of Kigali, so the capital city, which is of course much richer than the city, right? So
Mhm.
I wouldn't think it's much different in Ethiopia in terms of income level. So again, you have tons and tons of people applying because it's really good money compared to what else people could be getting in the economy. Um, how do you deal with that if you're scaling? So this is kind of just the context I want to lay for you having to experiment for two reasons. One is other BPOs, other ITOs are really hard working. How do we deploy agents? How do we work with AI in order to not only stay alive in this sector, but thrive in this sector? And the other is, like you said, if you have 500 applicants a month, how are you going to parse them, right?
Yep.
Here comes my hard question, right? So we have the EU AI Act, which leaves many European companies kind of sitting on their hands because they're worried about which risk category you're in when you're actually letting an AI decide over people's lives, right? Letting an AI decide over people's
Hmm.
career, right? So
Hmm.
if your AI is coming in, and of course it's not, it's getting implemented bit by bit, and I think this is really important for us to kind of learn from the process. How do we double check? So, for example, there's a study by Joy Buolamwini who said that she was a black lady working at MIT, and they were doing facial recognition, and it was recognizing all her co-eds, but it wasn't recognizing her. Like her face wasn't showing up as a face because she's
Hmm.
black. So, first thing that comes to mind is people going into a tech role. I would think the AI might initially think, well, okay, there's only 20% women, if that, in tech. So probably if a woman applies, there's a 20% chance that she'll be as good as the guys, right? So how do you kind of safeguard that, uh, that it's not kind of over amplifying past stereotypes because that's what it knows from its data?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that's, I mean, it's beyond that. Sometimes it is there are biases that can come across even with our human recruiters
Oh, yeah.
when you I don't know, when you graduated from a university and you think maybe all the alumni from that university are just as good as you are, or you have a a soft spot for people that came through the same college or worked at the same company as you before. Uh, there is that that I don't know, biases and maybe that are not obvious, but things that creep into the recruiting process. So you have to kind of mitigate those risks. I mean, we use hiring committees, so it's not a one-person decision. The hiring is done as a, as a committee. It's a we try to include as many, people as possible, or different types of people in that recruiting process, just to mitigate those risks. Because as you said, um, and so with the AI, the same kind of thing applies. So with the AI, we use the AI as a recommendation tool. It uses that as an analysis tool. So because I was going to that, the next step was for us was once we had built this parser and we had all the resumes in our applicant database, so we needed to kind of okay, then the next process, the manual process would be let's look at each one of them. They're parsed, they're in a nice format, they're summarized, but we still need to look into each of those and decide based on the resume, this one is good, or this one is completely unqualified. I'm not even going to consider them. I'm going to say I'm going to put a maybe for this one. So that process was another bottleneck. The next bottleneck that came through was this process of just filtering based on the resumes, just based on what people tell us they're capable of doing and people tell us that they've done in their past lives. So we used the AI again to kind of do that initial analysis for us and do that ranking and scoring. That was one of the next projects that we kind of worked on. And so when you give an AI job description, you say, I'm looking for a Python developer, they need to have 4 years of experience. And they also need to know a bit of Vue.js, for example, as a front-end technology. And so when you're looking through those applicants, and if you're just doing a search or you're doing some other type of analysis, you won't get that qualitative analysis, right? If I do a search on each of the resumes I get for Vue.js and Python, for example, it may give me a bunch of results that are just not qualitative, that just do not correspond to the job description. So when you give the AI, the large language model, the job description and the profile and say, give me an analysis of why this person is a good fit for this role, why they're not a good fit, what I should be looking for when I do the interview, um, and just give me a detailed, scorecard of this person, rank their experience level, their skills, their education level, the quality of their resume. Did they write? Because that's an indicator well of some other qualities. Um, and so that's that the AI was capable of giving us these very advanced and very accurate scorecards on each of these applicants that were coming through. And so instead of looking at the 100 applications that came through, I can just look at the top 10 that the AI ranked and then start there. And the committee can then look at the top 10 resumes uh, and do an analysis, decide on whether to shortlist, whether to decline, whether to move them to the next process, and then continue from there. And if we don't get enough candidates from the top 10 candidates, then we maybe will look at the next 10 and so on until we have the right fits and the right we've hired for that role. Because the scaling issue I mentioned, and you were talking about that earlier on, um, you need to be fast, right? It's not just finding the right people, but finding them quickly because teams are looking to ramp up immediately and trying to scale immediately as well. Our clients want, um, good developers to join their team. They need them to be extremely fit for the position, but they need them quickly as well. So if we're going to take 2 months for us to fill a team of 5 developers, that's a deal breaker for most of our clients as well, right? So they need them quickly. They need them in days, maybe weeks, but not more than that. So uh, that is the problem that we are facing. I mean, our manual process was just not enabling us to do that. Like without any agent helping us in the background, doing that shortlisting for us, doing that analysis for us, there's no way we could have provided um, 20 developers for a customer within a few weeks. That was just not possible. Um, but then now instead of looking at 150 applicants, I can just look at 10, start there, and move them along the process. Along the process, you get other propositions as well. Like, okay, now I'm talking to this person. What's the next thing that I'm doing now? Person came in for an interview or an assessment. How do we rank them, or how do we evaluate their skills? So again, we're in process of building out some very cool AI-enabled assessment tools as well. So it's like sit with a candidate for a few hours, ask them the right questions, ask them to write code, evaluate their the quality of their code, not just evaluate whether they've passed or not passed. That's typically what you used to do in the past. Is like, hey, solve these 3 challenges, and once they do that, then they're scored based on how many tests do they pass. Like have they solved the problem, and how many of our tests have passed based on the code that they provided. But there is no analysis of the code itself, or nothing to tell us, okay, I mean, this person, their tests have passed. I mean, but the code that they wrote wasn't really great. I mean, it was um they're using shortcuts. They were doing it the wrong way. They were doing their naming patterns were wrong. They're just not a professional level of coding, because some people are very adept at doing these problems over and over again, maybe getting very good at them, but not necessarily being very good programmers or very writing very good code, right? So the next step was, hey, okay, let's run them through this process where we ask them questions, we give them coding challenges, but let's use AI initially, I mean, to also evaluate the quality of the code, the quality of the submission that the people uh, gave us, and maybe even, and that's what we're working on right now. It's not in production yet, but maybe can we do something that's actually an interview process tailored to the individual, right? Instead of asking, the same questions to the 10 people and evaluating their outcomes, maybe we can look at you as a candidate. Elvis came in. What does he know? That's really the question that you're trying to solve, right? How well is Elvis suited for this position? So I'm going to ask you the right questions based on the job description and based on your answers. I can just maybe switch around and maybe adapt to your answer to the way you're answering questions. So if the questions I'm asking are really easy for you, then I just need to ask you more advanced questions, and then keep adding to that until I get a good idea of where you are in terms of suitability for this job description.
In my case,
And
it'd be the other way around, but continue.
yeah, well, the same applies for the other way around as well. So if you're uh, because maybe you're not suitable for this job, but maybe there is something else that will come up later on that you're a good fit for. So if I start with the expert questions and you're not able to answer them, maybe I just need to tone it down a little bit until I find your level, and then that will be your score. That will be our assessment of you, and we'll use that to maybe match you with something else in the future. Or so it's just really a way of scoring people based on their, that interaction with them. How can we use AI and enable, AI-based interactions to make us more efficient and to make us more accurate? Uh, that was the next step that we worked on. Um, so after that procedure, of course, you get hired and you get, you go through you start working with the client. Um, the next bit, that where we add values, once you're working with a client and you're there and uh, then can we upskill you? Can we make you even more productive for our clients? May not be immediately, but we need to work at how can we help you um, raise your value throughout your engagement with the client. Because once you join us, we want you to be not just be there for a short time. We want to build a career for you. We want you to have a clear growth in your career. So how can we help you get to the next phase? That would be helping you in the upskilling process. And we want to use AI there as well. We want to use AI agent to kind of say, okay, what could Elvis use? What kind of training could be suitable for Elvis, given that he's working on these tasks now? And he has this profile, he has this background, and what are his weaknesses? How can we um, create a good training path for him? And maybe use that as a group and do that as a group and maybe say, okay, based on similar patterns, we think Elvis and developer Y would be better suited for a training in data engineering, for example. I'm just saying that. So if we find that if we have enough people who could use that training, then that's something that we will set up, invest on, and roll out. So it's really like the whole flow of when you first interact with us, and then up until where you're working with a client and writing code or developing stuff or your call center agents. It's how every step of the way we want to add AI-enabled processes to really help you and streamline that process and make it scalable.
So I totally see the world going in this direction. It absolutely makes sense that this is what everybody who wants to be competitive in the near future or even in the present needs to do. But let me still put my European skeptic hat on for a minute, to just kind
Hmm.
of dig into this and to kind of see, okay, which are the ways that it could go in a positive and a negative? Because you're just now speaking about hard skills. Now, if we have individualized training, obviously that's the best way of training people, right? The richest
Right.
people always, their kids always have individual tutors. Um,
Hmm.
so that's how it's always been. That's that if you're privileged, you have an individual coach, and that now AI can give us this privilege. The crux comes when this coach comes from your employer. Hard skills, maybe not so bad, but if you're looking at soft skills, then it already starts getting a bit creepy, right? Like you're already looking at, okay, what's that person's strengths and what's that person's weaknesses, obviously, because you need to strengthen those. Now you're
Yeah.
kind of analyzing employees in a way like it sounds a bit like Big Brother, right? Like you're analyzing employees. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is the process we have to go through, right? To look at,
Yeah.
okay, how is this ethical? And how are we taking it forward to be more competitive in a fair and ethical way? I don't have the answers to it because I think but I'm also not running a company that needs to be doing this, or risk having someone else in the industry doing this. That's the times we're living
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is a conversation that we have internally as well. I mean, I think it's important that we um, safeguard and protect the data that we collect on our employees, candidates, even the clients, because sometimes we kind of measure or we keep track of what our clients asking for. So there's a lot of information around a specific client, especially once we've worked with them for a few roles, then we kind of build a profile of them as well, so that when they come next time, we kind of understand better what they're looking for. So,
That's
I
on
mean,
the
we have
client side. That's for your
that's
client. Your Okay.
yeah. I mean, there's just the client's requests, and we kind of build a profile of that client, and we say, okay, this is a tech company. They're doing data science. They're doing working on these tax stacks usually, and so we know how to respond to them when they come back. Um, so we're an ISO certified company, so we have very strict rules about how we store and encrypt and safeguard our data, and how we share it internally, how we share it with other resources, our other partners as well. Uh, so uh, Maintaining that data, keeping it safe and keeping it confidential, that's very important. But
Yeah,
then
yeah,
automating it using AI, for me, it's just a way of what a human would be doing. We're just now using AI agents to do it.
yeah,
So instead of having a human looking through the employee records and doing that manually, and them, taking them weeks to do that, we can just do an AI agent to look through the records, and do that in a few minutes. So I'm not sure that ethical dilemma is really important, is really relevant, but I do think safeguarding the data, especially if you're collecting tons of information, which can be confidential, that's really important. I think we're doing that an okay job of securing that confidential data.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I also realize that, you're speaking to me as a, as an individual and also as a representative of a company. So I just, happy to like,
Yeah.
to what extent we can talk about different topics. But the one that I'm super interested in is with the decisions that an AI makes. If you can help me out, like try to understand the trial and error process that you guys have had, like in the past, where you thought, okay, well, we're trying this out, we're feeling our way forward with this, like everyone else,
Yeah.
but where has it kind of not worked in the sense that, oh, you felt, okay, well, this is actually something we need to change. So I mean, I'll give you one example of what I think I got that. I'll give you one example of
Mm.
what I found. So this was a while back. I gave different image generators the request to generate an image of a man and a woman in a car, and the view of the viewer is from the back seat between the man and the woman looking out the windshield, and the woman is the driver and the man is the passenger. I posted this online a while ago. Most of the AIs just could not do that. It was
Mm,
too hard for them to put the woman in the driver's seat.
wow.
If I specifically asked them, put the woman in the driver's seat and the man in the passenger seat, it started getting funny. At some point, they would have the same torso, and the man and a woman would both be sitting in the driver's seat. You could really almost feel the pain of the AI trying to follow my command. Uh, but the man's hand was still on the steering wheel. Like you could still see the suit
Mm,
with the cufflinks on the steering wheel. So this is the
mm,
kind of thing where I'm thinking, okay, yes, if you go on Google Images and you Google man and woman in car or woman and man in car, most of those images will probably be of male drivers because even if you look around on the road, most of the times in a family setting, it happens so that the male gets into the driver's seat, but still not as much as you would have it on the AI, right? Like, so if I have a
right.
human, a human image generator would be able to draw me a picture of a female driver because that does exist in the real world, right? So that
Mm,
would be the kind of thing where I'm thinking, okay, is it systematically biased towards something where you found, oh, okay, wow, we need to watch out for this because it takes a certain category and makes it relevant, whereas we didn't actually care about that category, or worse yet, we did not want it to care about that category and it slipped it in anyway.
yeah. So I'm trying to think. I think we've had initially one of the problems we had was that the AI models were too politically correct, if you want.
Right. Okay.
So um, we would be asking for a candidate with, I don't know, 7 years of experience with Java, and a person would apply, and they wouldn't even have written a single line of code in Java, and that was obvious from the resume. Um, and then you'd have the same another person who would have 10 years of experience in Java. So you would expect a human would say, you know, the first resume is really worthless. It's like, hey, I'm giving you a 0 out of 10. And the second person, I'm giving you a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
And you would see the AI would still try to kind of accommodate that first resume and saying, you know what, this person, even though they haven't done anything in Java, maybe they could be trained. So I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10. And and then, that super qualified person, give them a 7. So it's like, huh, if you see that score, you'd think, well, maybe, let's look at both of them. When you look at the
Yeah.
resumes, you'd be
Yeah.
like, wow, okay. So you kind of need to tell the AI, unfortunately, to be harsher in their examination and to their. So you need to work on the prompt, and not just the prompts, but when you ask the AI to just rate something, rate a candidate, maybe it'll give you I don't know, let's say a 6 out of 10. And when you ask it, not only grade them, but also explain to me why you gave them that score. And then you'd see the precision. So initially, it'd be like, every candidate is between 6 and 8 or 6 and 9. Every one of them is between 6 and 9. And when you ask it to give you an explanation of why they gave that score, then you see the scores becoming much more accurate. And it's like, oh, okay. So now you get a wider range of scores because you're giving it such a wide range of candidates. So we kind of needed to work through that political correctness or that positiveness of the AI models. Uh, but you can't just tell them be harsh or be very critical. That doesn't really work from what I've seen. But you need to tell them, explain to me or break it down. Not just give me a score, but tell me education score, how much are they matching? Experience score, how much are they matching? Skill score, soft skill score. Break it down, and that's when it becomes much more precise and much more accurate. And that was one of the problems that we had to work through. And that's what we figured out. It's like you needed to give it more. You needed the response to have more context as opposed to just giving you a score or just saying yes or no or something like that. So that was the first lesson. And the other lesson was I think the AI are also too eager sometimes, eager to please. And when I give it a resume that's really bad and doesn't really have any, there's no information about the candidate's education level. But that person applied for a senior Python developer position. And so we found sometimes that it would make up this completely fictitious character and put in experiences and educations that were not in the resume. It'll just make them up, completely invented. Because I think it's just eager to say, well, you know what? I did figure out they have this experience. So it'll give them, it'll say they were educated at MIT, they worked at Amazon and Google on Python projects. I'm like completely made up because it just could not handle failure, I guess. It could not handle the fact that it was not able to figure out where this person went to school, where this person worked before. It would see that there is information there, but it would not be able to figure it out. So it would just make up stuff. Um, so that's
So if
one.
I were to hack your system, I would leave blank where I worked, and it will fill in the best possible, and I'll
Yeah.
put in some. That's
So it's one of the safeguards and guardrails that we had to put into the system as well. We had to tell it, again, same thing. If you're not able to figure it out, it's okay. Just leave it blank. We'll take care of it, or just give us an empty array. We'll take it. We'll take care of it. Um, so so that's, once you did that and you worked through the different iterations of your prompts and the way you kind of interact with the system, how you check them again, and how you format the responses, and you get to the right sweet spot where they're not really inventing stuff, but they're still creative enough to kind of figure things out. Like, for example, we ask the client, the AI to figure out, what are the top skills for these candidates based on their resumes. So it would look through some people put skills. They have a section in skills, and they would list down a bunch of skills there. But I think maybe sometimes people overdo it and they just put anything and everything in there and nothing is in their resume. So it would filter out those skills that are really not present or don't show up as an experience in the resume. And also it would do things like, correct the spellings, so that, or if it's not written the right way, if it's not, or sometimes if you have a skills section, but you forgot something there, but your experience clearly shows that you've worked on a specific technology, that it would add it into the skills section and and let's save it that way. So it's a fine balance of letting it become, kind of, I don't say creative, but at least flexible enough to make these decisions, but not so much that it goes wild and just makes things up, right?
so. How has that process been for you? And I mean, we're happy to talk about other topics, but I'm just fascinated by this particular thing, this process, this trial and error process of teaching the AI to, just prompting it a little bit, fine tuning it, and step by step getting it towards where you want it, not too extreme in the one side and not too rote in the other side.
Yeah.
Not how how has that been? Because my experience a lot of times has been, and I'm using different, I don't build agents, but like just has a lot of times been that my instructions after a certain context window or after a certain time, it would just also forget my instructions, or it would get hazy. It would
Mm-hmm.
have them a little bit, but is that something where you have in your system, if you give it an instruction, okay, 20% less of this, or, just roughly like, okay, this is what you have to do. Is that then set, cast in stone? Does it stay that way? Or do you feel like over time the AI just kind of reverts back to something else? Or can you talk about that a little bit, that process of fine tuning,
Yeah,
the headaches you've had maybe?
yeah. I mean, that's fun. I would describe it as settling because it's not like you're working on a traditional software engineering system and you know if you're getting better or worse at it. So with every iteration, you know how many bugs you fixed, how much improvement you've added to the system, and so you know if you're making progress or not. Whereas with AI-based systems, it's kind of unsettling because you never know, right? So then there's no I don't know, there's no clear way of testing whether you're making progress or not. So the way we're doing it now, we just have like for example, for the resume parser and analyzer, we have a subset of I don't know 20 resumes that we always use. And once there's the expected results, and there's so based on those 20 things, we're just seeing are we moving forward, are we moving backwards, or are we just stabilizing there? Um, but that's not doesn't really help us when you're out in the wild and you're getting 100 resumes every week and you're seeing the outputs randomly, which is what I do sometimes. I'm like randomly check out a resume and look at what's in the applicant tracking records versus the resume that the candidate sent, and you'd see that there's definitely progress, but it's just an intuition. Like you're developing an intuition, and for now, that's what we're doing right now. We're just basing our decisions on whether or not we want to deploy this change based on the first 20 records that we look at, and then just general intuition of are we moving forward? Is this a good update? And then we get feedback from our recruiters that tell us, did you guys change anything? Because it seems like it's doing it's worse the last few days. And we're like, huh, okay. And how are you seeing that? And he like, look at this record. I mean, it missed the whole education section was missed. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's that change that we deployed recently. So it's really an intuitive process, but there's no real quantitative thing where you can look at numbers and say, this is a better release, or let's revert back and try something else. So in many ways, me as a manager, it's been unsettling for me because I don't really have any metrics or numbers to look at to decide whether or not we're moving forward or backwards. But I think one of the good decisions that we made, because we considered training our own models and developing our large language models or using some of the models in Hugging Face, which are supposedly more accurate than the ones from OpenAI or Claude or Gemini. Uh, we decided to stick with OpenAI, so we're getting constant improvements on the model without making any efforts in training the model or fine tuning it or anything else. We're just leveraging those improvements immediately as they come through, uh, and we're getting reduced prices as well as the models progress. So that's one of the decisions that was maybe controversial at the time, but I think we're glad now that we made that decision.
So your 4.0 mini is your model?
For Omini, yes, for the
Yeah.
for these recruitment stuff. For the code analysis, I think we're using Claude, and we're
Okay.
using, or maybe we've played around with the other modules as well that are maybe more suitable for code analysis, code generation, and things like that. So uh, depending on the goal, you kind of pick and
Yeah.
choose which model you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like Claude is the best for all the coding assistant tools are all using, I think, Claude 3.7. Maybe they've switched to Claude 4 now, but
Yeah.
um, so what you've just said totally reminds me of my own journey of trying to understand which model is better or worse. We have these quantitative benchmarks, which are not great. And then what we do is qualitative benchmarks. Like in our workshops, we try to have 20 people sit next to each other and all try the 7 different large language models and see what they come up with in their respective area of expertise. And where are our models better or worse? And then we just ask them at the end of the day, which model did you like best and why did you pick that one? And that's really kind of our benchmarks. But to be
Mm.
honest, Brew, like I was, and this is, I might out myself as a total Luddite here, But I was fascinated with GPT-4 when it came out in March 2023, obviously, as we all were. And then there's been progress, but to some extent, I wish I could go back in like a Wayback Machine and go back to GPT-4, the very first one. Because
Mhm.
sometimes I feel a little bit like when Facebook first came out and it didn't have the news, the timeline. I loved Facebook at the beginning, and now I'm outing myself for my age. Um, because you could just kind of like look at people's pages, a little bit how you do on LinkedIn now, but without
Yeah.
the feed. And then the feed came in and it somehow made things less real. It's like the
Yeah.
algorithm shows you what you want to see. And I feel, I don't know
Mm.
if this is the case with large language models as they're getting better. Are they getting better? I'm sure they are. And to some extent, it's also playing into it that I'm becoming more expectant with
Mm.
each model that comes out. But for some reason, I feel like this, of course, we didn't have this fast takeoff the way we thought we might have it when we had GPT 3.5 come up in 2022. And then a couple months later, 3, 4 months later, early 2023, we had GPT 4, and it was just so much better than GPT 3.5.
Yeah.
I don't see that difference between GPT-4 and GPT 4.5, and we're yet to see GPT-5. So this whole scaling idea, just bigger compute is going to lead to something. Of course, we've had reasoning models come up afterwards, but even there, I'm finding myself frustrated a lot of times with the models in terms of, in a sense that I don't know if they're getting better. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? Like, have you
Yeah.
seen a clear trajectory of
Mm.
models getting better? I think there's a lot of consultants and a lot of pundits out there who are saying they're clearly getting better because that's what they're invested in, because they're the ones who are advising people on
Yeah.
how to use models. So if you can't see that it's getting better, it must be you who's the problem, not the model. But I'm kind of a bit more skeptical. I don't know if they're getting better currently. What are you seeing?
I think even the models, Foro Mini itself has been getting better since its initial release. And that is noticeable from our use cases and from, the way that the same prompts and the same application is now generating results that are, I wouldn't say drastically, but significantly better than they were a few months and weeks ago. Uh, in between generations, in between like between 4.0 mini and maybe 4.5, the ones that came afterwards, it seems to me that maybe the OpenAI is trying to create more specialized things. Like if you're trying to do coding, there's a model for you. If you're trying to do research, like deep stuff, like a scientific type of research where you need to look through vast amounts of data to gain some insights and things like that, then maybe there's a model for you. And I think that's how we need to look into those issues. There are models that are better suited for some activities and some use cases than others. And if you're picking the wrong one, then maybe you'll get that frustration of thinking, what, this is not getting better or it's not good enough. It's just about finding the strengths and the weaknesses of each model and using the right one in the right way. And of course,
Yeah.
our expectations are high as well, right? So, I mean, I think, you know, GPT-2 was impressive when it first came out, but now if you look at it now, you'll be like, what? This is like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very, very silly now. And our expectations grow over time. For our use cases, I think the models are now good enough, more than good enough for what we're trying to get them to do. So we're not really, bothered too much by whether or not they're getting better or not getting better. I think they're just good enough for what we're trying to do. And I get people telling me, why don't you use this model? This one is much better than this one. This one, you can have your own model. You can host your own stuff. And DeepSeek is better. And so I don't want to get into that conversation because I just think it's good enough for what we're trying to get it to do. And that's really what you need to look at. It's like If it's good enough for what you're trying to do, then you don't need to spend a lot of time and effort on really optimizing those um, number of parameters and all of those things. That just doesn't really matter for what you're trying to do.
You mentioned to me in a past discussion that you're using N8N, so for building agents, and also you are what I would call an old school programmer, an old school developer. How do you see that field changing? Do you think developers, programmers, coders, do you think that whole industry is getting more important or less important or just changing? What would you advise, say, a 15-year-old Ethiopian to kind of wrap their head around? Should they be more idea people or should they be more technical people? Or how would you see this process going forward from what you've seen AI can do now?
Right. So, I mean, I have a few ideas around these, and maybe, I will be proven wrong in a few years when we people watch
Obviously.
this interview again, and they're like, "Wow, look at what they're saying in 2025." Um, my opinion is the software developer role is going to change dramatically in the next few months. Uh, and once it does change, and its new format, and its new kind of uh, shape, we're going to need more developers now in the future than we have now. Uh, I'll give this analogy, and I was reading about this recently. Because in the 1990s and early 2000s, people were, especially in Europe, people were concerned about, reducing fossil fuel emissions, right? And so they wanted people to use less fuel. So the idea was, let's make the cars more fuel efficient. Like, so instead of running 10 kilometers on a liter, let's make you run 30 kilometers on a liter. So you'll use less fuel. Intuitively, that's what you would think. And but the results were kind of drastically different because people figured out, oh, okay, now I can run uh, 30 kilometers on fuel. So instead of driving back and forth from my home instead of driving, let's say 100 kilometers every week, I can just drive 200 now. And people who are maybe put off by the cost of fuel and were now buying cars instead of taking the bus. And
Yeah.
so the compound effect was, even though maybe individually people were using less fuel for each trip, the compound effect was people were now using, overall, the country is using more fuel than ever before. And I think once you make things more efficient, there's this phenomenon where people just keep using them more frequently and in different settings. Because I don't know, 30 years ago maybe 20 years ago when I was starting up, the first project that I was on is like a huge thing. It's like 30 developers. It was a project spanning a year and a half, two project managers, um, and we came in as the junior developers on that team, and we had all these like very senior guys mentoring us, and it was like this huge Gantt chart, and it's going to take us a year and a half to build the whole system, right? Um, I think, and now you see how far we've come. Now we have, even big companies using just two developers, three developers to build out a system, a full-blown, I don't know, ERP system that will take, 6 months or 4 months to build using a two-man team. And with AI, I can now see us doing projects in a couple of days or, maybe less than a week with a couple of guys. But then we're going to need, and then when that happens, what's going to happen is you're going to have everybody building small solutions. Like small businesses would be having their own custom software. You could have individual software. Like me as a person, I could have custom made software for myself. Um, and so I think and I can see us doing that even beyond software engineering. Like so, even I mean, thinking about call center agents now, I think that's what a lot of people are maybe concerned about. I can see call center agents becoming more and more redundant with AI Because when I see small businesses, my wife runs a small business. She spends hours and hours on the phone just doing customer support, and because just there's no return on investment for her to invest on a call center agent because it's too expensive for her, right? So, well, 90% of the questions are like, hey, do you open on Sundays, or what time do you close today? Do you have this product in stock? How much does it cost? And like, yeah, I mean, an AI could answer those questions, right? And then maybe 10% of the questions are more need a more of a human element where it's like, hey, the customer is complaining about a specific product. They really need to vent with a human, and so let's just talk with them and help them maybe return the product, give them a discount or whatever, and then uh, so that needs a human element. But 90% of the questions or the inquiries are really automatable and they can be done by an AI. So I can see a world when my wife in the future invests in a call center or customer support operation that maybe costs her, I don't know, $100 a month. It will be done by AI, but there will be a human supporting that AI, those AIs somewhere in the world. Uh, and that would be impossible for her now. There's no way she can invest in a call center agent today. But if those doors open up and all of the small businesses or even medium-sized businesses who are not able to afford a call center support can now, afford them, maybe we'll use them. So it'll be like 9% AI, 10% human, but on millions of these businesses coming to that fray and requesting for those services. And it'll be the same thing for developers. Developers would need to invest their time in and effort in learning, of course, how to leverage AI, how to build solutions on top of AI, what works well, what doesn't work well using AI, and then build up those human skills that I would describe them. Build up that empathy, build that soft skill, that communication skill, that problem-solving skill that you're going to need when you're building a software system. Sit with a client that's a small business. They need I don't know, an AI-enabled stock management system. Sit with them, learn their problem, understand what they're trying to achieve, what are their pain points, what are their difficulties, why are they passionate for this to happen, why do they want this to happen, and then use AI, build a system, a couple of weeks, roll it out for them, come back in 6 months, do an update, come back in 3 months, do an update. That will be the thing. And then, but there will be infinite possibilities of these types of projects happening instead of doing, we as a company, like we do 2 or 3 projects per year. Maybe we'll do 100 of them. And small businesses will do hundreds of them. As I said, 20 years ago, only a handful of companies in the world were doing really hardcore software development projects. It was not accessible to even companies like ours who were not really um, who didn't have just getting a copy of a software was a huge issue. Um, Now with open source and all of these uh, technologies coming to the forefront, it became accessible to us, companies like ours. And now with AI, it will become accessible to small businesses. It will become accessible to government offices who will want to create small automations and create some small systems here and there. Um, it will be uh, possible for anybody and everybody, individuals at home, to build stuff for your home, for your day-to-day life, something that custom software for your own use, personal use. That will be something that will be needed. Um, so that would be my first argument. And then um, I played around with these vibe coding tools and cursors and bolts and replets of this world. And look, I think there will be uh, development shops and individuals that will completely rely on these tools for their work. But I am still struggling with the idea that the argument that some people make that maybe a an accountant will create his own fintech application using co vibe coding tools and cursors and things like that. I am still having a hard time, coming to terms with that. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I'm just using those vibe coding tools myself as a technical person. You still need to invest a lot of time, focus. You still need to invest your energy into getting all of those things right, and you need to have that confidence as well that comes with experience and through training, to have that confidence of actually writing a system, completing it, doing it end to end, making it production ready, and deploying it and start using it. And migrating your data, you're integrating with a third party, all of those things. I'm not sure that a salesperson can create a CRM using Replit or Bolt on his own, which is the fear, right? So they're not going to need developers; they're just going to do it themselves. Like a sales guy is going to write a CRM from scratch using an AI. I think we overestimate people's abilities to kind of use these tools uh, and create full-blown systems. It could change in a generation or two, when when people are taught how to use these tools from childhood, and they may master them at the end, and they know how to do something from scratch all the way up to production and getting up to speed. But I'm skeptical around the idea that people are going to use, sales guys are going to use AI to create a CRM. An accountant is going to use AI to create a fintech application, and nobody's going to need developers anymore. I just don't see that happening. But they're going to need less developers. They're not going to need a huge team of 20 developers. They're going to need one or two good guys, and they're going to need less time. These projects will not take year and a half. They'll take weeks, like a couple of weeks to complete.
But then there'll
That
be
would,
many more projects because people like your
yeah,
wife and myself can come and, bring work to the developers. So the pie is going to grow, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you what you said about accountants and not to be too critical of accountants. Um, you said that you were skeptical of the people being able to use those vibe coding tools, not so skeptical of those vibe coding tools at some point coming to a level where they can actually produce all the code on their own, where the coding language is English and doesn't have to be Python or something. Now, I always hear people say, well, there's a mindset of being a developer. It's a certain type of person that becomes a developer, people who build things, people who fix things. I'm wondering if that's what you're referring to. If the next coding language is English, that's this Andre Karpathy has this pinned on his X account. The new coding language is English. Um, Still, is there a developer mindset needed, even if you don't speak that specific language, to build a CRM? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, probably. There is mindset. There are also there's a high level of specialization and focus and other qualities that you need to build these things, even using vibe coding tools, I think. Um, we have partnership with Salesforce, a CRM. They built these fantastic tools, and their expectation was, you know, sales guys are just going to customize it on their own. They're just going to drag and drop a few things. Uh, it's going to be self-explanatory. Nobody's going to need any developer, but you need to spend time and effort to actually learn these things, become adept at them, have the confidence, have the right problem-solving skills, and and then just have that skill that comes out of repetition, doing that two, three, four, 5 times, and getting that confidence that makes you better and more efficient at it than anybody else. Uh, so you need, yeah, you're right. You need that mindset, that problem-solving mindset, and the problem-solving skills. You need other things like you need a good level of empathy, I think, like understanding what your pain points are, putting myself in your shoes, in the customer's shoes, and saying, how can I make your life better? I can see that you're struggling with this. Let me, did you know that you could do this? You can have a system that does this and that for you, and I can show you how to do that. I can build that for you. Because sometimes the customer is not capable of formulating their pain points and their requirements. You need to do that for them. You need to sit with them and understand their pain points, formulate it in a way that a vibe coding tool can understand. Look at the outputs of the vibe coding tool of the AI, test it, running around, find a few issues, find its faults, its weaknesses, fix them, um, demo it back to the client, show them how to use it, and then let them go at it. Uh, so yeah, a few skills that just beyond the mindset, you need also those skills, those human skills that need to be developed.
And you think that's regardless of how good the vibe coding tools are getting. So if you think about, we talked about GPT-2, if you think about today's vibe coding models being the equivalent of GPT-2, right?
Mhm.
Um, when they get better, you think you might not need all the, I'm still going to come back to the question, you're not getting off the hook. What should a 15-year-old Ethiopian be practicing right now? Should they be practicing the nuts and bolts, or should they be vibing all day and all night?
Yeah, I think initially, and then I don't think you can not do any coding at all and become a developer, even if you have these AI coding tools. I don't think you need to become experts at, Java or React or whatever new framework is present at the time. I don't think you need that level of expertise anymore. But your core fundamental skills will not really change. You still need to be able to have this algorithmic thinking where you're like, oh, okay, I have this problem. Even if you're instructing the GPT or the AI how to do it, you still need to kind of formulate it and say, I can see this problem. So let me apply this algorithm. You need to look at this first, and then, if that doesn't work, then go to this step. If that doesn't go to this step, you need to give them instructions. You need to have that algorithmic thinking. Uh, and then you need to understand products as well. You need to understand uh, security, for example, because vibe coding tools are great. Sometimes when you look through there's this gaping security holes in the code that they leave out. So you need to figure out, okay, look through the APIs that they generate, check them out. What's being sent, what's not being sent? Are we sending out confidential things? Are we keeping things private? Are we using the right encryption methods? You need to understand that, and you need to instruct the vibe coding tools that you have these non-functional requirements as well. Like, okay, you need to keep this information safe on the server. You have to encrypt it. You have to do this and that, and you can't run it on the network. So you need to understand things like basic security. You need to understand scale. You need to even if you're instructing the AI, you need to understand scale and say, you know what? You need to be able to accommodate 1,000 people at a time because I can see that this is there's going to be a peak in traffic between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. So you need to have an architecture that's scalable to this type of traffic. So I mean, these fundamental things don't change, and you still need to be uh, have a strong understanding of these things. That's not going to change, but you just may not need to know the nuts and bolts of React and how you do custom hooks in React. That's not going to be extremely relevant when a 15-year-old goes into the job market in 10 years' time, let's say.
I always have this comparison with cars. So 100 years ago, every driver needed to also be a mechanic because cars kept breaking down. And now it's the other way around. The Formula One teams that are fixing the cars, they don't really know how good a job they're doing until the driver got into the car and tells them, even though the driver could never fix the car. but they can
Mm.
tell them what they did right and wrong, right? Should young Ethiopians become drivers or mechanics? That's what I'm kind of asking you. Um, should they, what should they be looking at? Because all the things that you've said sound to me like more common sense rather than technical skill. As the Because what I'm hearing you say is you anticipate the vibe coding models like Bolt or Lovable to become so good that you can actually use them just using English. You never need to look under the hood, but you need to know how all the things fit together. So in essence, you have to have been under the hood at some point. I don't know if that analogy makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I would definitely, you know, recommend our young Ethiopians who are going through college or going through high school right now. Uh, you know, if you have to, if you just need to learn one thing, just learn problem solving and just learn how to be a good, just have a good algorithmic mind. Learn empathy. Learn the fundamentals of computer science, like learn what cybersecurity is, how does it work, learn how you scale things, how microservices work, what databases are. You need to learn, you need to understand those things. You don't necessarily need to be expert at it, uh, but you need to understand those things. Uh, but then, uh, if you're able to just establish that human relationship with a person or a company, understand their pain points, articulate it in a way that an AI can understand, and then create a movement in that company that says, okay, we need this solution, we need this software solution, and then once you've built it, put it in their hands and make them use it, make it usable for them, make it something that they want to use, that they will love using every day, and and really change their business or change their day-to-day lives. That is your impact. That's the type of developers that we're going to need. I don't think we're going to need uh, people who are spending their entire lives on their editors writing out code. We'll need a few of them. We'll need a few of them in to do the really innovative and groundbreaking advances in the field of computer science. But in our day-to-day lives and in the industry as a whole, I don't think we're going to need that in maybe in 5 years' time. Most of the work will be done by AI, but it doesn't mean the AI is autonomous and that it's sitting down with customers and understanding their pain points and solving their problems and teaching them how to use the new systems and recommending them, giving it recommendations of how they could improve their business using software and AI. All of these things will be done by a human, which is probably in all likelihood a technical person, a software developer that will be wearing these different hats. And then he's going back and using these AI tools to build out the solutions in a few days, weeks, and then coming back to that organization and say, hey, let's use this system now. Let's create a movement. Let's import the user's data. Let's use a third-party API. Let's do all of these things that maybe people can think of that will really, you know, improve their processes and workflows and their efficiencies, which is pretty much what, in our company, we have very smart people working here, but we needed the developers to kind of tell us what was possible uh, and tell us, make recommendations and say, let's look at this part, let's integrate with that API, let's take that piece of information, let's build a system that does this, and that. We can do a resume parser. Nobody would have thought of building it in-house, or maybe an agent that does ranking for us. None of the recruiters thought about it. They're very smart people, but the developers sat with them, looked at the processes while building I don't know, the ATS, and said, "This is how we can change their lives." And and then they went back and created the systems, deployed it back, And then we said, guys, we're going to change your life. Like instead of doing that the usual way, here's a new way of doing business. Here's an agent that can do this for you. Here is a third party that we've integrated with, so we don't have to do this manually now. And this is the value that the software developer will bring in the future, and not just their skills in React or something like that, which are going to be commoditized to the point of really not becoming a differentiating factor.
So I'm sorry to hark on about this because I just really want to linger on this because this is so important. I'm getting a lot of out of this. I'm thinking of Midjourney, where we thought initially Midjourney was going to put photographers out of a job, but it turns out that professional photographers who know the terminology for the different types of lighting and the different styles and the different lenses and cameras are actually the best Midjourney prompters
Mhm.
because they come up with the best. Same with art historians, they'll come up with the epochs and the right naming, the right labeling, because they're the experts in that field. What I'm hearing from you, it's a little bit that a developer has a certain mindset, a problem-solving mindset. And I'm mindful that you're a developer yourself. I'm wondering if there's other professions where people are solving problems. Like, for example, the accountant you mentioned as an example might be good at their kind of problem solving, where they might work together with the developers who have the technical skill set that may or may not be useful going forward if the AI
Mhm.
takes the technical work on. If we are looking, I don't want to put a time frame on this, time 5 years, 2 years. Some of the leading labs are saying we're going to have artificial general intelligence next year. I'm sure there's someone out there who says it's next week. Uh, they're very bullish on their um, predictions. If we're looking forward, and you mentioned the example of your wife, maybe soon being able to take on an AI customer service representative who 90% of the time will be AI and 10% of the time will be someone at MMCY or somewhere else who will
Mhm.
take on the more difficult calls. So that's kind of this Javon's paradox where it grows the pie, right? Like, so because gasoline got cheaper, people drive more cars. So because BPO got cheaper, uh, people are now using it more. So are you seeing more on the technical trajectory, the jobs increasing in terms of that growing pie, or more on the non-technical, on the soft skill? Because you threw a little bit of a wrench in there. You mentioned all those hard skills, and then you said all of a sudden empathy in the middle of the skills that you mentioned, which isn't something that I would have associated with a developer off the top of my head. Um, but the thing that I get back to is, okay, what are we teaching? What should we be teaching young people right now when we don't know what particular skills they'll need to have in the future? What basics should we be teaching them in order to be smarter, in order to be better, in order to be good problem solvers? Not necessarily on a lonely island, but with the tools that we have.
Right. I know you said going to come back to the empathy thing. I've always felt that the best developers were the ones who had greater empathy, because having that connection with the product, the software, client, the user, that's just what the secret sauce. So that's what adds that final touch to a product that just makes it much more useful and makes it a much more successful product. I've always felt that was a key ingredient in a developer, and that's one of the qualities I look for when um, when hiring people as well. And I think that's going to be even more important now. That's going to be one of the biggest human qualities that will remain important once AI has taken over all the grunt work of doing code and debugging and testing and things like that. So I think that will be still be very important. Um, when people ask me what skills do they need to learn, I usually Uh, for countries like Ethiopia, where the, the English is not the natural language or the first, the mother tongue of most of the people here, I think getting a good grasp of the English language is going to be critical from early ages. And I think a lot of it will be down to what we teach or the skills that we get people to learn at the earliest of ages. And it's going to be things like, yeah, I mentioned English as the fundamental thing, because if they're good at English now, they have access to the world's information, they have access to AI, they can pick up any other skill that they want to pick up if they're really, if they're into it. Um, if language is a barrier, then it causes, much more difficulties at later stages in their careers, in their professional lives. I think that should be something that we really look into. Um, and then I mentioned the algorithmic mind, that problem-solving thing, uh, where you take a problem and you break it down. You see how you can solve individual parts. You see patterns. You see you learn from every problem, and you recollect a solution that you provided to a previous problem. You apply it again, and that makes you better. And you can see it faster and before everybody else. I think I'm not sure how you teach those things, but it's still a matter of repetition and doing things over and over again. And I mean, I have young kids. I teach them how to use Scratch, and not because I want them to be coders, but I just think that it's like, okay, this algorithmic mind where you're like looping through a thing and on every loop you do something. That's something that would be useful in any career, anyways, right? Any career um, would need that algorithmic mind, that problem-solving mind. I mean, and then that optimal solution seeking mind where you're like, okay, I can do this better now. Let me improve this now. Is there anything I can do better? Um, but then you're going to need other skills as well. Like you're going to need uh, team skills. You're going to need to work with other people on uh, on tackling even bigger problems. You're going to use AI, of course. You're going to use lots of tools. You're going to use open source. You're going to use pre-made stuff. AI will be a big part of the tools that you use, but you're going to need that collaboration, that teamwork, that again, that empathy that comes with working with other people to create something that's bigger than the sum of the parts. Um, and so, yeah, I'd really focus on those things and maybe not focus on. And you're going to need to understand how you're probably going to change careers more than once in your life. Like I don't know if you've done that. I've met a few people who've changed careers who are, I don't know, musicians who became graphical designers and then now finally became developers. So three career changes in one life. But I think that our kids are going to change probably maybe 5, 6, 10 times in their careers. Um, because maybe their jobs are gone, they're no longer needed, or maybe um, they're just not, they're just moved on to something better and something more fulfilling and for their careers. And they're going to have that freedom to do that, which is a good thing. But they need to have that ability to learn new things, like ability to talk to other people, look at material, and teach yourself. Have that motivation, that discipline to sit down with the topic and learn it and to become an expert at it, and you can make a living out of it. I think that's going to be important as well.
Let me take you back to agents for 1 minute or a few minutes. You've built agents for in-house applications, and we're always looking at the global business services sector as how is Africa, the young continent, going to compete with the buyer market now automating things themselves? So the enterprise is actually now using AI themselves instead of outsourcing things to. So this is the topic. Is it going to create jobs in Africa? Now, it
Mhm.
looks like to me MMCY could, among other companies, could turn that narrative on its head by saying, well, actually, as Europe is sitting on its hands, wondering whether or not they're allowed to do this or that, we've been building things before we knew they were called agents. Um, can you build things for clients because you just have that head start, that advantage of having been able to tinker with things? Whereas here in Europe, for the longest time, even still now, employees aren't officially allowed to use public-facing models. I still see interfaces with models that say powered by GPT-4 Turbo or something, like older models because the company interface was built a couple months ago and they haven't been able to switch. And they're using AI tools that
Yeah.
everyone knows are much worse than the tool you could use on your phone. So everybody's just bringing their phone to work. There's studies on this where the secret cyborg, where people are actually using AI a lot more than they're telling their bosses. This is what's happening in Europe, but I can imagine you in Ethiopia have a much more forward-looking perspective and just can say, okay, well, let's try this stuff out together as a company. We did these workshops in Ghana and Rwanda, and one thing that stood out when we did the impact survey was how open and how supportive superiors were towards employees using AI at work. That was different. In Germany, it's, superiors are much more worried and much more cautious of using AI, and that's kind of also leaving us behind. I mean, we don't have that. That's why I'm so excited to speak to you because we don't have that level of expertise that you have because you guys have been tinkering. You guys have been building on things that here few people besides the AI crowd that are building this stuff have been working on at the enterprise level. Is that there's
Yeah.
a question in there?
Yeah.
Let me just, I just, so the question is, do you see yourself kind of leapfrogging in the sense that um, having tinkered with AI for as long as you have now, that you are in a bit of a head start position, a pole position, compared to some of the clients you speak to overseas?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be very bullish about this. I've always, in my career as in the BPO sector, now 17 years, as we mentioned earlier on, it's always these technological shifts that kind of give us an opening for non-traditional or maybe challenger destinations like ours, kind of give us an opening to kind of move into that space quickly and maybe establish ourselves. I remember in 2008 there was this craze around rich internet applications. I don't know if anybody remembers them anymore. It's pre HTML5, so it's like these. Do you remember the Flash player? Uh, so you
No.
could build, yeah, you could build desktop grade applications inside a web browser. That was the idea. Uh, that was before HTML and when JavaScript was just very bad. So he had the Flash player from Adobe, and then Microsoft had Silverlight, Java had applets, and so everybody was competing to build things like in the rich internet application space, and there was no prior experience there, right? So nobody could say, "I'm going to hire somebody in India to do that," or even in Silicon Valley, because nobody had done that before. These were very new technologies, so they're just looking around, and if you get that opportunity, you build a few things, and you have a portfolio already very quickly, people will consider you, at least talk to you, at least before they reject you. But at least you get that opportunity, that opening when there's a technological shift. And then in 2010 or 11, when Apple released the App Store and you could build actual applications for the iPhone. Nobody had done that before. So people who would have never considered hiring an Ethiopian developer suddenly were talking to us because we had built a couple of apps on the App Store. We had released them. We were beginners ourselves, but everybody was beginners back then. So at least people were talking to us and listening to us. And they did. We did build quite a few applications, mobile applications, based on that initial head start that we took, because we took the initiative of actually, just imagining a few apps, building them, releasing them on the App Store. And when people came to talk to us, we could tell them, this is our app. We built this. This is the way we built it. This is the lessons we learned. This is how you do it. This is how you do not do it. Um, and again, I mean, cloud was the same issue. And anything, something new comes up, it kind of levels up the playing field for everyone, at least for a short while. And of course, the challengers, I mean, the incumbents, I'd say the more traditional ones eventually pick up, and you don't have that level playing field anymore. But you get a window where you get to express yourself and you get to kind of break through. And that window is really important. And I think that's what other non-traditional BPO destinations should consider, especially in Africa. This is our opportunity to kind of break through that invisible glass, where the incumbent or the traditional destinations have this huge baggage that they're carrying around that gives them a lot of inertia, and they take time to kind of look at these new technologies, shift towards those things. It takes a lot of flexibility, agility that maybe more established destinations and more stable economies do not have. But we can do that. We can do that. We've proven that we can do that here, and we can do that on an even larger scale if we put concerted effort into it. We've had customers in Europe who have you know consistently asked for consulting advice and who have hired developers, junior ones or maybe mid-level developers who have had these AI experiences that I just mentioned. They've hired them not because they are more senior or more have more experience than others, but it's just they have the right experience. They have a year and a half building AI agents. That's all you need. And nobody can better that now because there's no way anybody can have more than a year and a half of experience building AI agents. So it's a huge opportunity, and these shifts actually mean a lot. And when you see them, you actually have to pounce and act very quickly, and move on and move forward very quickly in a very agile manner. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have this AI empowered workforce throughout the organization. Meaning everybody has to learn AI. Everybody has to complement their work using AI. Especially our developers need to kind of, especially the new ones. I'm kind of, I have like two different experiences with developers here, where the new ones are very quick to adopt these technologies, uh, find ways to optimize the solutions very, quickly without even any instructions. They're already using the latest and the best modules and tools. Um, And so, I mean, that's my hope. Like the hope is let's give these young developers the space and the opportunity and the framework to learn these things, to build out a portfolio of products, gain some experience, and that will be invaluable and it will be unmatched anywhere in the world. We have a short window because eventually everybody else, every other destination, the whole world will pick up these skills. But it's the short window where you can move fast. That's only the challenger destinations, the non-traditional ones that can do that very quickly. So there is a huge opportunity, but it's a short window, and agility will be very crucial here.
So you mentioned you have a small R&D team. Initially, you mentioned like two or three, and then you said it was junior people.
Yeah,
So it's young people thinking differently and just being malleable in the way they think outside the box and just say, okay, well, let's try this. Let's see how this works. Let's work with these models and see what we can build. Are you of course, you're using this on the one hand to solve problems and to be more competitive in your industry. On the other hand, that in and of itself could be the next service, right? So I'm thinking you have these two or three people who are building that human capital in themselves and who might soon get picked up. They might soon move to Silicon Valley for horrendous salaries, which would be great. That would be an awesome
Hmm.
story for those individuals and also for Ethiopia as a country to some extent. But
Hmm.
even better than that would be, do you guys have already some sort of apprenticeship model built in so that you institutionalize that knowledge that you're currently generating on the fly
Yeah,
to have more people, more young people learn from the ones who are half a step ahead?
absolutely. I mean, that's the difficulty and also the huge opportunity, right? So, how do you institutionalize the learnings that keep changing on a day-to-day basis? That's really the issue here. So, we're growing the R&D team. We're the two, three people. I think there's now close to 10 people doing that same thing, and a couple of people have left because they've joined clients. They've actually been placed with our customers who need AI solutions. That is working. It is working. It's a working model. It's something that is this career path is really working, and it is bearing fruits and bearing results. How do you institutionalize it? That's something that we're still working on, but it is very much in our radar. Not just in our radar. It's one of the top things that we need to do as a company right now. Is to create this AI talent in the short window that I just mentioned, and help us make this breakthrough of maybe having hundreds and thousands of developers that are AI empowered, that know how to build these solutions, that learned in the early stages, so that 3, 4 years from now they'll be really like they'll be experts at it now. So they will have that head start. So it is at the top of our AI strategy. It's really creating this AI empowered workforce, and that starts with the developers and the IT guys.
I'm wondering, I had on the podcast, I had Johan Stein from South Africa, and he said this controversial statement. He said universities are not going to exist the way they do now in a few years because it's too far away from the actual thing that needs to be learned. And I feel similar about book publishing. I have this book here, uh, Agentic Artificial Intelligence, that I'm working my way through, and that's self-published. These guys wrote it in March and it was out in April. Instead of having these cycles of publishers waiting until September until something comes out. Uh, I'm wondering, just as you were speaking, you have your initial two or three guys, now they're 10. Do you know that setting at medical schools at the university where you have an operating table and then above the operating table you have like a a like an
Auditorium type.
auditorium, right? People
Yeah.
are looking down from the
Hmm.
top onto the operating table. I'm
Hmm.
wondering if that's the kind of setting, looking at the demographics of Ethiopia. Apprenticeship, like massive apprenticeship. So you have, let me exaggerate, but you have 500 people in a room all looking down at your team of 10 R&D people and just watching them and having your R&D team speak out loud as these
Mm.
500 apprentices are taking notes and they're being tested at the end of the week, and that's how you choose your next two out of the 500. Sounds draconian, but looking at the demographics, that would be the kind of way of incentivizing people to get into it. I'm sure you could fill that room in Addis.
I'm pretty sure you can do that. Yeah, for sure. Um, and it's already something that we're kind of doing in-house, where we try to have these sessions, monthly sessions, where somebody speaks out about something that they've learned, something that they've built recently, and something that they're, passionate about. Um, it's doing it on a larger scale you know, would mean that the problem with developers have a hard time maybe explaining and teaching others information that they understand intuitively. And
Yeah.
so we need them to also acquire these other skills, and maybe work on that as well, where it's like, hey, I've built this thing, it's very cool, but let me explain my process to you, and let me explain my intuition behind this. Let me guide you through the steps in a way that you can understand without making any assumptions and making any, um, I don't know, speaking very openly in a way that everybody can understand. And especially when it comes to like 500 people, then it becomes more difficult. But I think we're going to have to do that in one way or another, whether it's a form of the hackathons that you are doing, whether it's us doing, I don't know, 3, 4 times a year events where we get people in and we show them this is the realm of what's possible. This is how you can use AI in your companies, in your businesses. These are some of the tools, the nice ones that we've used. Maybe, uh, give us an idea of how you can use them in your day-to-day lives and in your organization. Yeah, something that would be very open to.
So you've spoken very openly to me about what you guys do, and you've even last time we spoke, you shared your screen and showed me everything. How do you feel about those 500, let's just stick with that number, coming into MMCY, and three of them might go over to R&D group and two might go over to Marab or Minab and or CCI even, and five of them might build their own business. How do you feel about that? Would that be good or bad for your system? Like, how jealous are you of your knowledge in terms of spreading it in the local ecosystem?
Look, I don't think there's any groundbreaking knowledge that we want to keep secrets and we just want to keep to ourselves and not share with anybody else. This is we learn from other people, right? We learn from I mean, we're using tools built by other people. We're using OpenAI. We're using automation tools. We're using open source packages that other people built. Of course, we want to give back to the community. We already do these boot camp programs that I mentioned earlier on. We train 15 people. We only hire maybe 4 or 5 of them, and it's not necessarily the best ones that we end up hiring. Of course, we want to hire the best ones, but ultimately the best ones, we have other plans, and they after the boot camp they already have secured employment elsewhere, and but that's fine. That's fine. As long as the community grows and we establish the destination, and where there are hundreds of thousands of very good developers, it becomes our brand, becomes our identity, and it eventually helps MMCY grow, then we're good with that. Very good. Very happy with that.
What's the connection with ALX? There's ALX. I mean, you mentioned the hackathons. So we're coming in September. We're going to do something together, which I'm super excited about with MMCY, with some of the other groups and other players in the space,
Yeah.
and just kind of put something on at ALX, which is a training institutions, right? A learning institution. So this ecosystem building. I mean, Silicon Valley wasn't Silicon Valley. I guess it always was a valley, Palo Alto, but it wasn't the Silicon Valley until a few companies came together and just there was then that snowball effect where it just became more and more, and eventually nobody could afford rent in that place. How do you see that in kind of looking at that trajectory, the years and decades ahead in Ethiopia? Kind of is ALX in that space, or how do you see the
Yeah.
ecosystem in Addis?
Yeah. I mean, we've worked with ALX ever since they've established themselves in this part of the world. Uh, I think we were one of the first partners that they looked at when they had a initial uh, cohort of graduates, and they were looking to place them within companies. So we've hired a few of them, a few ALX resources. We continue to provide feedback on the curriculum and the level of the talent that they're providing. So absolutely, very important part of the ecosystem for us. Uh, we have partners on the sourcing side, partners that provide talent to us. We have partners on the demand side who actually look for opportunities for these talents. We kind of coordinate all of these things, and we do things on our own as well. We do talent development of our own, but we also use talent developed at ALX and other partners. That's very there's enough room for everyone essentially. So we're very happy to hire talent from ALX if it's at the level that we want it, and also when we find people that we want to train ourselves and keep and have them work in our team, and we will do that as well. But I think there's a very um, symbiotic relationship with ALX and other partners where we hire their resources, get them to work, and that makes it, and they give back to their community again, and they mentor other people who are going through the same process as them. Yeah.
Right. Beruh, I think I've held you more than I promised I would. Uh, we've spoken quite a while. Unless, I mean, do you have questions for me, or are we,
No, I
are
think
you,
it's good. Yeah,
yeah,
I
you
think
want
we've
to,
spoken enough.
yes, yes,
I think we've gotten a lot of
yeah,
the points that I wanted to get across. I think it's good. I think there's great opportunities for this sector for BPO, ITO with combined with AI. The intersection of those two is going to be fascinating, and it's great that we have kind of a clear strategy around these things, and I think the future is going to be fantastic for young people coming through.
yeah, yeah. Sounds great. Hey, thank you so much for doing this. It's a great conversation for me.
My pleasure, Elvis. Great talking to you.
Thank you.